All right, Tuesday night, Raj is in the house. Let's go. All right, welcome to the Krug Show. Tuesday night, Raj is in the house. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show as well. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, along the Monterey Peninsula. Thanks to Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. And we're, of course, brought to you by BetUS. So you're looking for a new book this football season, BetUS is the answer. With BetUS, you get the fastest payouts in the industry and easy withdrawals, live wagering in all major games. Plus, you get 10% back on your net losses twice a year. On top of that, you also get your own personal account manager, blah, 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 blah. Head over to BetUS.com. Use the promo code YouTube150 to get a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, 125% sign-up deposit on your next two, up to $2,000. Again, sign up at BetUS.com. Use the code YouTube150 to claim your offer. Oh, what happened? I dropped my mouse
here. Uh-oh. Stay tuned, Larry. You missed something. I don't know. We'll wait for Larry here. I think.
There we go. Got the mouse. Dropped the mouse. All right. We're off and running. Welcome to the Krug Show. Raj, good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. Good to see you, too. It's another week closer to the next season. I can't wait for the Super Bowl to be over, but I'm doing good. I hope you're doing good.
I know, Super Bowl week, gosh, it's a bummer that we're not in New Orleans. It's a bummer that the Niners are not in New Orleans. It's a bummer that the Eagles and Chiefs are in New Orleans. And we will get to the Super Bowl. But let's start with the news of the day, which is that the 49ers former special teams coach, Brian Schneider, gets a gig. He goes to Washington. So he can't be all bad, huh? If the Commanders wanted him, obviously they saw some positives in his performance. Brian Schneider, or is this just the good old boy network that, if you're just one of the favored sons, it doesn't matter how pathetically fucking awful you are, you just will continue to get jobs in the NFL. What's your read on Schneider getting hired?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's been a special teams coordinator for a long time, so he has experience. But, I mean, obviously we saw the results with the Niners, but I think it is the good old boys club. If you know, he coached with Dan Quinn, Kyle Shanahan, back in the day when they coached the Falcons. Adam Peters, he was with the 49ers. So if you look at Washington, they got Dan Quinn and Adam Peters. It makes sense. It's probably Kyle doing his boy a solid because Kyle's loyal to his guys. He probably called in Peters and Quinn, said, hey, can you go give Schneider a job? Oh, we got a job for him. We can put him on the special team stuff. That's the way I see it, because there's no way in hell you watch this 49ers special teams unit this year and last year and the decisions they did and all the stuff that they put on tape, and you say, oh, yeah, let's go hire Brian Schneider as a special teams coach. Are you kidding me? So I think it definitely was a favor that Kyle called it.
What a weird career the guy had. He was in Seattle. They won a Super Bowl. He was hailed as one of the best special teams coaches. Had some personal problems there. Niners hired him. I don't know. Maybe he's just done. Maybe coaches. It's like players. You get to a certain age and you just kind of go through the motions, and you've got no new stories, no new anecdotes, and it's just the same old, same old. I don't know. I don't know what to say about him, because the Niners were atrocious on special teams. They acted like they didn't expect things that were going to happen. That like teams weren't going to try fake punts on you. I mean, it's like you're a horrible special teams unit. To me, beyond, obviously Jake Moody sucks and Wishnowsky was terrible this year, and the coverage units really weren't all that great. But to me, the biggest disappointment is just the unbelievable endless parade of special teams penalties. It's like the 49ers cannot play Did they? I would be willing to guess that the 49ers did not play a single game this year without a special teams penalty. I don't know where you can go to find that, but my recollection was that they committed at least a penalty on special teams. Maybe not a full-on screwed up, blown deal where they didn't know, a punt, they couldn't deal with a fake punt or something like that, or some turnover on their own, Guerrero running up somebody's back and fumbling. Beyond all that, I just felt like they committed a penalty on special teams in every single game.
No. They dug their own grave literally every week. Penalties were an issue, like you said, all of the turnovers, the mishaps, it was just poor play in overall like grand scape of special teams. It was a blunder. Like, it was every week you just knew that the special teams was going to cost you some points or cost you some field position. Or like you said, a penalty like every single week, and you're just pulling your hair because there was times that the Niners could have won a couple of games here and there, but special teams put them in a weird position, or they had a penalty, or they missed a kick. It was just bad, man. Honestly, I'm glad they got rid of him. I'm excited to see what Brand Boyer is going to do. 49ers hired him from the Jets, and Salah had him on his coaching staff, so I think there's going to be some continuity there. But for Schneider, it's not necessarily like, so he goes to Washington, and if you literally think about it, it's a demotion because he's an assistant coordinator. He's going to be like an assistant coach there. It's not like he's a special teams coordinator. So he didn't just go and get another special teams coordinator job. It's an assistant. So it's like, okay, we'll get you on the staff. You're a special teams guy. We can use you, but maybe he's just trying to kind of get himself back in the good graces and get another coaching job later down the line. But in a sense, it is a demotion, but I wouldn't hire him if I was a coach or a GM or somebody's team. I'd look at the 49ers, special teams this year and be like, why would I want him on my special team staff? It's crazy to me.
I want a special teams coach that's young and hungry, not a special teams coach that's old with a past.
Yeah.
And a bad track record. And that's what he has. But you're saying he's the assistant in Washington. So
he's going to be the assistant special teams coach. Yeah.
The other big story of the day is that Jacksonville asked for permission to interview Josh Williams, the Niner executive, front office executive for their GM opening. Ethan Waugh, who was with Trent Baalke and with Josh Williams here in San Francisco, is running this search. So it's not surprising that Williams is getting an interview. I hope it's a legitimate interview. He's a minority candidate. I hope this is not Jacksonville's way of circumventing or getting, checking the box of the Rooney Rule so they can go hire some retread. Josh Williams is an interesting guy. He went to my high school. He went to Columbia for college. Yeah. He's a very bright guy. It's funny, too. The 49ers took criticism. You would think that they would be applauded for their minority hiring practices, which have netted them several draft choices. Yeah. Instead, people have like gone against them. Like, so when the league created an incentive to make it so teams had an incentive to interview minority candidates so that they would go through the interview process, and thus they would be, the people who are doing the hiring would be more comfortable. And essentially the argument is that if they do more interviewing, eventually they'll get more jobs. I think it's proven that it's actually been the case, but the 49ers have used this avenue to get multiple third-round draft choices. And last year during the Super Bowl week, they actually were criticized for doing this. Does that make any sense to you at all, that the league would have this incentive and then to criticize a team that earns the incentive by following the edict of the league, which is to try to look for more qualified minority candidates for some of the top positions in the league, like head coach, like general manager? That's what the Niners have done. They basically, they've done it more so than any other team in pro football, and yet they've been criticized for doing it. It's truly backwards thinking.
It's crazy. I mean, you would think you want to, spread diversity and minorities around the league, and I think it's a good thing. Obviously, there's incentive. If you get somebody on your staff and they become a head coach or GM, get some comp picks. And the 49ers, I think they're just smarter than other teams, and teams are jealous because they figured out the system. Because every year it seems like, okay, you're going to poach from the 49ers. If you're going to poach our team, because every single year you lose coaches, you lose coordinators, you lose front office members. I think the 49ers are like, okay, well, if you're going to take our coaches, because it seems like if you look in the news, it's always the 49ers team that gets poached, right? So if you're going to poach our coaches and front office members, might as well get some minority ones so we can get something out of it. I think that's part of it. And I just think the league is just not as smart as the 49ers. So they're jealous in a way that, 49ers, you're going to lose Williams possibly. He become a GM. You can get 2 draft picks out of it. So it really is smart. I think it's a great strategy. And also, I think the 49ers just genuinely find good people and good coaches, and they happen to be minority. But I think the league is salty that the 49ers understand the rule better than everybody. And you're right. It's because they have added so many minorities over the last couple of years. Mike McDaniel netted him some picks, D'Amico Ryan, Ron Carthon, Robert Salah. All these guys got him comp picks, and the league is like, oh, the Niners. Well, if you don't want it to happen, don't take our damn coaches. That's it. Plain and simple. That's it.
Or if you don't want it to happen, don't create the incentive.
That's correct.
I mean, why did you create the incentive if you don't want people to be incentivized to hire the minority coaches?
Exactly.
The 49 and the minority scouts, the 49ers promoted Josh Williams to his most current position. So, and as far as the 49ers, even if the 49ers were promoting minority candidates and they were totally upfront about it, we are doing this to secure extra draft capital. How could you criticize? How are we criticizing? How could you possibly criticize? Even if they said they were doing the promoting to win, to basically get the incentive. I don't see the problem with that. I don't see, of course, we'd like to think that they're interviewing the best people no matter what, whether they're, whatever they are, whatever minority group or majority group they come from, that the 49ers are interviewing the best people. But if they came out and said, you know what, we are promoting our minority candidates through our organization, and we are doing so with the idea that they will go elsewhere and that we will get third-round compensatory selections for them going elsewhere. Even if they said that out front, they said the quiet part out loud, I still don't think that there can be any criticism. You're still furthering the careers of these minority candidates, and that was what the incentive was created to do.
Correct.
So I don't understand. There are people that are like, hey, man, the Niners are overdoing this. Well,
it's the rules. They're playing within the rules. If you're allowing it, why not? I mean, it's and you're right. They're honestly giving these people so much opportunity. Like, look at the coaches. They promote them, they develop them. D'Amico Ryans, he started as a linebacker coach, became the defense coordinator, and now he's a freaking head coach, and he's a damn good one. So the 49ers are just giving people opportunities that they didn't have, years back. Because before, let's be honest, there wasn't a lot of minority coaches. And now this rule is initiative to give them that opportunity. And the 49ers just said, okay, we're going to do it. And they've totally taken the initiative to make it at the forefront of their philosophy. And, power to the 49ers. The rest of the league just need to catch up, man. That's it. Bottom line. And
the league has looked bad. The league has looked bad for years on this, and the Niners are actually making them look good by developing a roster of minority candidates that the rest of the league can shop from. And if the Niners wind up getting third-round compensatory picks in the process, You know what? I call that smart business.
It's
That's
smart.
adjusting to the rules. I mean, here are the rules to the game. Here's where you can benefit. Here's where, you can lose picks. I mean, the Niners lost a 5th-round pick because of some move that they made internally, some internal accounting, clerical cap error. And the league determined that that was enough of an error that it gave them some competitive advantage and docked them their 5th-round pick, which is why they don't have their own 5th-round pick in the 2025 draft. Okay, well, if you can take picks away because teams aren't exhibiting the kind of behavior that you want, then clearly you can award picks if teams are doing the kind of behavior that you want to see. And I did think that was interesting last year. It's like people are like, oh yeah, the 49ers are they're promoting too many minority candidates and to too many positions, and they're getting too many compensatory draft picks. It's like, and that's a problem. Why? I mean, it's like really crazy. All right, let's move on to topic 3. Brad Graham is in New Orleans, and he interviewed Mike Florio today, and Florio weighed in on his thoughts on Brock Purdy and the contract extension, and we're going to play you that 17-second soundbite right here. Here is Mike Florio talking to Brad Graham. This is courtesy of Brad's X account, and here is Florio. Let's actually put that up a little higher. There you go.
And what do you project? What do you see happening with Brock Purdy, and what do you project that contract looks like?
Well, I wouldn't sign him this year. I'd make him play another year. I think it's undetermined. I would make him an offer based upon what we've seen so far. I don't know what the magic number would be. The market's currently $60 million a year. When I offer him $35 to $40 million, maybe.
What do you?
So, I mean, Florio hates the Niners and obviously hates Purdy. It's funny. Mayoko weighed in on this earlier today as well, and he said, "Hey, look, it's going to be the number's going to be close to 60." So it's funny these Florio people. So Trevor Lawrence makes 50, and Tua makes 50, and Hurts makes 50, and all these guys are making 50. Prescott's making 60. But Brock Purdy, who's been to a Super Bowl, I'd offer him, 35, 40. I mean, Florio's a jackass. I mean, he just is. He's just a fucking jackass. I don't know if really there's any other way to say about it. His stories he doesn't really have credible sources. I've never really heard him first on something where it ultimately turned out to be the case. He loves to throw out all kinds of garbage against the wall and hope that it sticks. To me, I didn't even like playing that soundbite. I only played it because I was asked to play it. And when he called Brock Purdy, it rhymes with turdy.
Yeah,
that's when it was like, hey, Florio, you rhyme with idiot. You know what I mean? I mean, you're an absolute fool. And I just think that, there's just no doubt about that. I mean, you're comparing the guy's name to Turdy. I mean, literally, I mean,
that's like 5-year-old.
You're like 60 going on 5. That for a 60-year-old guy, that's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like kindergarten humor, and I don't really ever. I don't ever take anything he says serious. You're right. Pro Football Talk. It's usually just
him and Sims are a joke.
Throw stuff at a wall. Him and Sims they grind my gears so much. They don't know what they're talking about.
Sims doesn't know shit. He doesn't know shit. Both these guys know jack.
Their take is, let's try to be different. Let's try to be edgy because that's going to get views. That's the way they do it. It's like a Nick Wright type guy. They're going to go around, the more popular take. They're going to go on the opposite side because they want to play the fence and it gets views. I know what they do. But in that little soundbite you played, that little clip, he said like 4 different things. Oh, I don't know. Oh, maybe 35. Oh, maybe they don't pay. He said 4 different things. He didn't even know what he was talking about. He just rambling. He just had the microphone in his hand. He's rambling. So I don't care what Mike Florio says. And like you said, Florio's the biggest Niner hater other than maybe Colin Cowherd. The guy hates the Niners like so much because years ago they wouldn't give him the inside scoop, and now he hates them forever.
I get it. Brock Purdy had a down year, but he largely had a down year because he's operating behind the worst line among all the contending quarterbacks. And it's not like he had weapons this year. He didn't have his weapons. You took away his 3 top weapons who had 40 touchdowns, and you replace them with guys who, those 3 same top weapons had 2 this year. I mean, that's why he backslid. That's why he held the ball so much longer, because he was trying desperately to make plays. But it's interesting how Brock Purdy, for whatever reason, gets put in some extra special category all unto himself. It's like, so he's been to a Super Bowl and some of these other guys haven't, but that doesn't help him. And his down year, it's like, okay, well, Hurts had a down year last year, but Hurts is making $55 million and nobody's saying, and Florio's not complaining about that. How come there has to be a whole new market set for Brock Purdy? I'd love to know. Why is Brock Purdy so special that he doesn't get to be in the current market, the existing market? He has to create his own lesser market. Why? Is it because he's 6'1" and not 6'2"? Is it because what is the reason? I'd love to know, because this guy's been in the league for a very short amount of time, and he's been to 2 NFC championships and a Super Bowl in a very short amount of time.
I think a lot of it, I think what I was going to say is a lot of the people that, criticize him, it's always, he's Mr. Irrelevant, he's the last, but they always go back to the draft pick. Like, that's never going to escape him, Larry. Just because he was the last pick of the draft, like, it is brought up every single time. Like, when this topic comes up, at some point somebody brings it up. I really feel that is the end-all conversation. When most people talk about Purdy, it's, well, he was the last pick of the draft, so you can't expect. That's literally, I think, the only argument these people have. Well, he was the last pick of the draft. All these other guys were first-round picks. That's all they go by. That's it. Bottom line, that's their favorite thing to use.
Draft. It's all about the draft. Yeah. The draft. Well, I mean, whatever. A guy like Florio, you have to put out numbers and you have to own it. You're saying it's going to be 35 million. I'm saying it's going to be 60. We'll see who's closer. We'll see who's closer when the whole thing shakes out. And if you're at 35 and he gets 60, are you really an insider?
You're an outsider. That's what
are you an insider if you're saying he's going to get 30, 35, 35, 40? I mean, he's just it's the disrespect is off the charts for Brock Purdy. I mean, Florio doesn't matter at the end of the day, but still, it's still kind of annoying to hear guys like that, sit there with he's kind of smug and he's like,
he's very smug.
35, 40. And if you said, well, why is he not as good as Tua Tagovailoa? He couldn't tell you, Tua's bigger. No. Tua's healthier. No. Tua's been more successful. No. Tua's more productive. No. It's like, no, across the board. Why, give me an argument why he's not as good as Tua Tagovailoa. I'd love to know.
Can't do it. Tua's not better than Brock Purdy. There's no way.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's an unbelievable thing. But yeah, no, something about, I don't know what the deal is with Florio, but he's kind of like a junior insider. You know what I mean? He doesn't really. It's like Schefter's an insider, Rappaport's an insider. Florio is not an insider. He would, he literally just said that Brock's going to get 35 to 40 million, and he's probably going to get 60, north of 60. And he should have to answer for that when he's wrong, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, he also, in the same sentence, he says, well, I don't know. Oh, well, maybe 30. He literally doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not an insider, Larry. He's just a guy.
He's just throwing stuff against the wall.
He just a podcast, radio, whatever he does. He writes or whatever. He's in the industry of media, and he thinks he knows things. Because when you're in the media, you go to all these events, and you might pick up things here and there. But he has no clue. No team's calling up Florio and saying, "Oh, I got a scoop for you. No, I guarantee nobody's calling Floria and telling him inside sources. He might think he knows, but he doesn't know. He's just a troll.
He's just annoying. I think Peyton Manning had something interesting to say about Brock. If I can find it here. I think it's on maybe Coach Yak's deal, but let's see. Well, Peyton Manning says he expects Brock Purdy and the 49ers to have a bounce back season. He says they had a ton of injuries. I think for a quarterback, continuity, when you have the same receivers, running back, tight ends behind you and next to you every single series, every single game, that helps you as a quarterback. Not saying you can't win if you have different guys in there, but if it makes it tougher. I think with a lot of their injuries, with Christian having some injuries, Debo and Ayuk out there, he signed late and Pearsall was injured. That makes it tough. But Brock is a competitive guy, and I see them bouncing back and having a better year next year. Nothing against Peyton Manning, but yeah, way to go out on a limb.
It's a safe take.
What a ridiculous. Seriously. I hate to rip Peyton, but Peyton? So you're saying that the 49ers are more likely going to win 7 games or more instead of 5 games or less? And with their easy 4th place schedule next year off of their 6-win season? Shocked. What? No shit. No, seriously.
You never know, Larry. You never know. Injuries.
What an embarrassing take.
It's a safe take. That's it.
Very safe. Very safe. I'm going to share the screen and show you a mock draft that I did earlier today. I want your thoughts on my mock draft. I did it through PFF. Okay. So it started off with Mason Graham.
Oh.
Jalen Walker fell to the 2nd round.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
I got Anthony Belton, the big tackle that I like, in the 3rd round.
It's not bad. Good value.
Then I got Savion Jones, who I just thought was the most impressive player of anybody at the Senior Bowl, the LSU edge rusher / inside player, 6'6", 285. And I got him at 99 in the draft. That was incredible. J.J. Pegues at 111. Kyle Monange, who's amazing back from Rutgers. The contact balance on Kyle Monange is off the charts. Even though they gave me a D, I would make that pick again. That's round 4. Also in round 4, Oluwafemi Oladejo, who had a great Senior Bowl, the former Cal Bear, who's defensive end this year at UCLA. At 149 in the 5th round, I got Emory Jones.
That's crazy value.
And they gave me a C for the pick. That's an A.
The draft, the grading is so silly on those things. I don't know.
I know the grading. The grading is about as useful as the grades that they give out on a fantasy football draft. Yeah. Those are kind of useless too. David Benda from Texas in the 6th round, and then Eric Gregory from Arkansas, defensive tackle, in the 7th round. I just stumbled onto Eric Gregory. Man, Raj, Arkansas has got a really underrated program. They really do. The Niners got Dre Greenlaw out of there, but that program's produced some other really good defensive players. And this defensive tackle they have, this Eric Gregory, he's just a monster, man. Just a total monster. If that guy is there in the 7th round, something is seriously wrong. Or this has to go down as the greatest defensive tackle depth ever. It's an amazing defensive tackle draft, but Eric Gregory is a tremendous player, and if he's there in the 7th round at 256, that is a steal. But they gave me a B+ overall for the draft. But what do you think of the draft? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 defenders, and only offensive guys are the 2 offensive linemen and Kyle Monange. So it's a very defensive-oriented draft, but I kind of see the Niners, maybe whatever dollars they spend in free agency, I think are going to be on the offensive side of the ball. I think I could see Joe Flacco. I could see Tommy Tremble. I could see a speedy little receiver. I named a few of them last week. I could even, I could definitely see like a Drew Dahlman. I could definitely see the 49ers maybe filling 3 or 4 of their holes that that they fill in free agency on the offensive side. So I kind of feel like it's a really good defensive depth draft. I mean, it's an amazing running back draft and tight end too. And I didn't get a tight end in this particular one. The one thing I did in this mock is I did no trades. So like every single pick is the Niners pick. That's their pick where they're picking. So I don't know. Sometimes you do too many trades. The whole thing seems a little wonky. Yeah. I did PFF, which is not my favorite simulator, just because it doesn't have as many players as some of the other ones. But what do you think? What do you think overall? What would you think of a draft that starts off, rounds 1, 2, 3, Mason Graham, Jalen Walker, Anthony Belton, Savion Jones? I
would be ecstatic. I mean, looking at the draft, you've really beefed up the defensive line. As me and you talked about, this defensive line needs an overhaul. So I'd be hyped up. Mason Graham would be basically
that'd be a stroke of luck.
That would be unbelievable. Like, I know we need offensive linemen, but if you miss out on Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks, the top two, you got to go best available. And if Mason Graham is there, I mean, he can basically be like as impactful as a Quinnen Williams on this defense with Nick Bosa. That to me is how good this guy could be. He is unbelievable in that middle, and that would plug up the gaps. He would be your run stuffer. Like, you need a guy like that. So Mason Graham, amazing. Jalen Walker, he's a dog off. I mean, he's fast, he's quick. And if they take Walker, that might tell me they get rid of Dre Greenlaw, or
unless they're going to play Walker at defensive end,
like a situational kind of pass rusher type thing. Yeah. So,
we'll see. I mean, Walker's so intriguing. I couldn't pass on him. He won the Butkus Award, which goes to the nation's best linebacker.
I can't argue. If you get Mason Graham and Jalen Walker in the first 2 rounds, that's a home run, Larry. And then Anthony Belton for your first offensive lineman, your tackle. Like, I know we need a top flight guy, but that's unbelievable value at 3rd round. Like, you get a start. He's a starter in your system. And then Emory Jones, the guy from LSU, if you get him that late, are you kidding me? So honestly, that's a W draft, Larry. To me, it's a W draft. You get some good depth. The only thing I would criticize, not really a criticism, but they do need a tight end. I don't know if they're going to get it through the draft or in free agency, but tight end.
Or maybe, I mean, this draft is really good at tight end, and I really wanted a tight end. Yeah. But you know what? I do think, one of the guys that they're interested in is a guy named Rivaldo Fairweather, who plays at Auburn, and they met with him.
Yeah, saw that.
There's a lot of people that, in a lot of the mocks I'm looking at, he goes undrafted. So maybe Jalen Conyers, who was at ASU and transferred to Texas Tech, with the drafts I'm looking at, he's like in the 7th round and might go undrafted. So there definitely are going to be a bunch of tight ends. The other thing is I kind of think the 49ers may make a play in free agency for Tommy Tremble, who's a little bit of everything, right? He's like a tight end. He's a fullback. He's an H-back. He's and he's like kind of a jack of all trades. I could see them signing a guy like Tommy Tremble, which would take, tight end probably off the list as far as they're concerned. So that's just my latest mock that I did earlier today. Couple other ones I want to get your thoughts on. One, Mooney Ward said today, whoever signs me is going to get a hungry player. I think there's a very good chance he's moving on. He's not. They're not bringing him back. The question is, are they going to go, with what they got, or there's a lot of speculation that maybe they'll go sign a DJ Reed, and that DJ Reed might follow Robert Saleh over to San Francisco. What do you think? I mean, Mooney is such a class act. He went through such a terrible thing this year with a baby dying, and I don't know. I mean, and he was very reflective in the locker room late in the year. He was very human, man. It was really human. It wasn't like, hey man, leave me alone. And it wasn't like, he appreciated being in the room around his guys, and he appreciated being back at work. But you could see, man, I mean, that's such a tragedy. And I mean, it's the unthinkable. I mean, you and I both have kids. I mean, it's like, you're not supposed to outlive your children, and So obviously, what him and his wife probably went through last year was something that very few people ever experience. And the Niners, I thought, handled it so brilliantly. I know, a lot of content creators, a lot of our takes are negative sometimes, but I almost feel like, we ought to give the Niners full credit for the way they handled that, because Kyle Shanahan, there was a ton of pressure to win. And there was a ton of pressure this year on this team. This team was supposed to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, and they didn't even make the playoffs. And so there was a lot of pressure as this year went on, I'm sure, on the head of John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. But you know what? They were like, Mooney, this, far exceeds anything that we're doing over here. And you just worry about your family and just take care of your wife, take care of your family, take care of your mentals, take care of your head. You know what I mean? Come back when you feel good, when you feel right, when you want to. And I just get the feeling that as their season was spinning out of control and being flushed down the toilet, I don't think they, crossed that line of pressuring this guy to play. I think they took the high road, man. I think they gave Mooney like the full wide berth of like, hey man, you're going through something that we can't even relate to. Just, we're here for you, and come back whenever you're ready, and don't worry about us. Don't worry about football. Don't worry about the team. We're here to support you this year. And, I just kind of, and just from talking to him late in the year, you could kind of tell, man, he appreciated the franchise. He appreciated his teammates. I think he appreciated us in the media, just the fact that everybody just, gave him a lot of room to just kind of cope with this in whatever way he could. And I know you're right. He is moving on, and hopefully he will play better. And I'm sure he is hungry to kind of get back to himself, the great player that he was the last few years. But I'll say this, man, I didn't hear a negative word said about the guy. I never heard a negative word said about the guy, but from a player, from a 49er representative, from a fan, from a media person, on the record, off the record, in the corner of the media room, in the corner of the locker room. You know what I mean? When the mics aren't around, I didn't hear anybody go like, what the heck? I think everybody kind of understood. So I credit everybody, man, including the Niners on this one, for just striking the right chord. I mean, you can say you're a family, but you got to show it. And you can say you're all about the players, but you got to show it. And being all about the players means, being totally willing to go with a practice squad corner in a game you got to have so that your veteran star corner can cope with tragedy at his own pace. And to me, it makes me proud that I'm a Niner fan, that I'm associated with the franchise in any way, shape, or form, because there's a lot of pressure to win, man. There's a lot of pressure to perform. And the 49ers, I thought, they kept this whole thing in the proper perspective. They never pressured this man. And I just think they handled that so well. And I know he appreciated it. I'm sure the guys in the room appreciated it as well. And I don't think that Shanahan and Lynch sometimes get enough credit for the humanity that they show.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's what I said today when I addressed this topic. And it's the 49ers really took care of this situation the best way they could. It was tough. Nobody can expect, tragedy like this to happen to Mooney Ward. And, they could have forced him to play. They could have said, hey, look, we got a playoff run. We can still salvage the season. And who knows how good he would have played during all this. He was going through so much. But as I said, the writing's on the wall, just because he did tell the media. I remember Matt Lively when he interviewed him a couple of weeks ago after the season. And he basically said, I get PTSD coming back, rightfully so. Like, there's so much trauma that he has to, go through mentally, that the Niners did him right by saying, hey, look, man, take all the time you want. If you don't want to play, it is what it is. And I think they will move on from him. And I think he's going to, basically, he's telling us, hey, I'm testing the market. Whoever gets me, he's telling them, like, I'm focused. Last year was rough. The team let me do what I got to do, but I'm focused. I'm coming back to show you I'm my best version of myself, and a lot of people took it wrong. I just remember the comments. People are like, oh, we're not getting the best version. How come you weren't the best of yourself with the Niners? He went through a lot of stuff, but he was his best version when he was focused, when he was healthy. Pro Bowler, second team All-Pro. This guy was an absolute dog. He had like the most PBUs in the league last year. This guy was so good. And then obviously this year was rough on everybody, not just Mooney Ward, but his was exceptionally like more traumatic than most of the players, maybe other than Trent Williams, because he had something that was pretty tough himself. And then after that, a couple weeks later, Trevor Ward, his wife got birth to their son. So like he lost a kid and then he gained a kid. So I'm sure he was all over the map. Now he's saying, look, I got to focus up and I'm ready to be my Pro Bowl, all-pro self. And you know what, whatever happens to him, if he stays with the Niners, which I don't think is going to happen, if he goes with another team, I wish him nothing but the best, because you said it. He's a unbelievable person, not just great player on the field, but off the field, like unreal. I get a lot of these players that follow me, and some of them we talk to. Mooney Ward was one of those guys. We talk in the DM like I'm just like one of the guys. We'd always send stuff, and he would ask me, oh, you got that fire pic of me last week you posted. Can you tell me which photographer it was? And, he wanted his pics, and so he can make a post and always wish me well. He'd always say my content's great, and I'd tell him, good luck. Like, he was one of those players that was like, man, he really actually takes his time, and he'll DM me. And so nobody has to do that. I'm freaking social media guy. Who cares, right? But he made it his, priority to, be really cool with me. And he was great with the fan base. You can just see it when he talks. He was always like very passionate, very articulate. He's a class act. And I wish him nothing but the best, especially after this year, man. He went through so much. But yeah, with what he said today, whatever team I'm on next year, I'm going to get the best version of me. I'm hungry. It just tells me that, he knows he's accepted it. He's going to test the market, and whoever gets him, be ready, because Mooney's going to come for blood, and I'm rooting for him wherever he goes. But Larry, I think he's going to be amazing. I think my early favorite for where he's going, my
where do you think?
The Jets. I don't know if you saw the other day. The Jets announced Steve Wilkes as their defensive coordinator, and he
I saw that.
He posted. He was like, "Congrats." I saw that. I was like, "Oh, he's going to go after someone that's familiar with him, right?" And the Jets could use him. They may not be able to retain DJ Reed, because I think you're right. DJ Reed is coming to the Niners to follow Robert Salah. So a little switch there. DJ Reed, Deanna Lenore, Renato Green. Let's go.
That might be good. That might be good for everybody. For everybody. One other name that could be a replacement for Mooney is Greg Newsome. And Bleacher Report had a rumor today that maybe the Browns would trade Greg Newsome to the Niners for a 2025 third-round draft choice. I don't think I would make that move, but you know what? If you decided that you wanted to go Greg Newsome as a corner, he's probably better than what you could get out of the draft in the third round at corner. He's definitely physical, smart player, played at Northwestern, very physical, played on a very good defense, and a very similar defense in Cleveland. And I that would be interesting. What do you think of Greg Newsome, who's been a really solid nickel corner for a couple of years now? He's one of the better nickel corners, I think, in the league. Would you make that move? Would you trade your third-round pick to the Browns for Greg Newsome? I mean, there's also the cap component, and obviously the Purdy contract, and that the cap's going to be a huge factor in almost all the Niners' decisions. But what do you think? Would you rather get the rookie corner and try to find somebody, or do you like the idea of DJ Reed, or do you like the idea of maybe trying to trade for a Greg Newsome?
I mean, if I had my choice out of all those guys, I'd take DJ Reed. He's, proven himself. He's a good player. Him and Salah, got a good connection. So I think that'd be best case scenario. I don't always want to draft a cornerback, because they're probably not going to take a cornerback in the first 2 rounds. I'd be very surprised if they did. And who knows if that cornerback can become a starter. You have a really good one with Renato Green, 2nd round pick. He's going to be a starter. Deanna Lenore, obviously he's your cornerstone cornerback. He's your guy there. So I want a veteran. I wouldn't hate Newsome. You could probably get him for a 3rd or 4th. But if you're going to trade with the Browns, go get me Myles Garrett along with Greg Newsome. I mean, I wouldn't hate Newsome, but my favorite cornerback in the free agent market this year, or in the market this year, that they could probably get is probably DJ Reed. I like him. Former Niner. He left on some weird terms because of the pec injury, but I think they cleaned it up. And with Salah back in the mix, I think he could get him to follow suit. So
was it a mistake? What happened? How did they lose him, Raj? Because they drafted him in the 5th round. I did the interview on draft day with John Lund and John Middlecoff at his LA draft party, and he was like had this cockiness and swagger, and he was thrilled to be a Niner. And I mean, they loved everything about this guy. And then what? He had an injury, and they tried to clear him through waivers, and he got plucked. Is that what happened?
Yeah, so that's pretty much what happened. He was on the team. They were developing him. Special team guy at first, and then they kind of started mix him in, and you were like, okay, he's good. And then he tore his pec during the offseason one year, and it was like, oh man, you know how roster goes. You kind of have to cut a guy, and you can hopefully put him back on the PUP list or reclaim him back, because you got to make certain cuts, and some of it's a gamble. So they thought, the Niners were thinking, okay, we could probably cut him. Nobody's going to re-sign him or anything, or claim him off waivers. We could put him on PUP, stash him, and that'll be that. But unfortunately for the 49ers, the Seahawks came and they were like, oh, we need it. They took him. And I remember he posted something on his Instagram. He was like, what the heck? You guys did? He made it seem like he wasn't wanted with the Niners. Well, that wasn't the case, because Kyle, he addressed it. He said, we wanted DJ Reed, but it was a little bad blood because, you get cut off the team. And when you're young, I think at the time he didn't understand the business, or maybe he took it the wrong way. And then, he played his butt off. And I remember it was a rival too. He went to Seattle, and he came back that season. He was on the injury reserve, and he came back. I was like, oh, wow. He rehabbed his way back, which the Niners thought he could, but he came back, and he made it his mission to get revenge on the Niners. I remember it was a very personal thing. And after that, he went free agency with Robert Saleh and the Jets. The rest is history. But I think because of Robert, he can probably patch it up and say, look, that was a whole weird situation. They wanted you, but they had to make some weird roster cuts and they wanted you back. They thought you were going to clear waivers and go on PUP, but nobody wants to be cut, and that's the way I think he took it. He's a little irritated, but I love DJ Reed. He became a great player after he left the Niners. I remember Niner fans going, oh, I can't believe we got rid of this guy. Look at him. He's Pro Bowl caliber. Like, he is a dog, man. They could use him.
Oh, he's so good. I mean, he can play the boundary too. I mean, he can play nickel if you need him to play nickel, but they have Demo who plays in that slot, and he's really good at it. They can play DJ Reed outside. And he did miss, he had some penalties last year. He did miss some tackles. I think he had the most penalties he's had in a single season this last year. So it's not going to go forever. But you know what? For the next 2 years, I think if you signed him on a 2-year deal, I think he'd give you two pretty good years. Yeah. Matt Mayoko weighed in on Myles Garrett to the Niners today. He said, there's no question in my mind that they will look into this and they'll figure out what they're comfortable doing as far as landing him. So he thinks they're going to look into it. What do you think? I mean, what's your this was a big story. Garrett's a great player. Part of me would like to play the draft differently this year. Part of me would like to not go all in for one player, even though you got the 11th pick, but to move back and see if I could get 3 or 4 third or fourth round picks. I kind of feel like the Niners, there's an opportunity. Like, the more I've watched of the Senior Bowl, the more I've watched of the prospects at the Shrine Game, the more I realize that this is an epic, like once in a 25-year kind of a defensive line draft. This is an incredible crop of defensive linemen. And like, you could build your line. I mean, with the 11th pick, you could trade from 11 to 15, get a couple extra picks, trade from 15 to 18, get a couple extra picks, maybe even trade into the mid-20s and get a couple extra picks. You could wind up with 5 or 6 extra picks if you wanted. And you could move down the board, and then you could just sit there and draft all your favorites. I mean, I'm looking at this defensive line, depth chart, and it's crazy. Kenneth Grant, Aeneas Peebles, Tonka Hemingway, Savion Jones, C.J. West, Walter Nolan, Mason Graham, Darius Alexander, Ty Robinson, Eric Gregory, J.J. Pegues. I mean, there's just dudes. Just all kinds of dudes. And that doesn't even touch it. I mean, Derek Harmon, all kinds of guys. The Nebraska combo, Ty Robinson, Nash Hutmacher. There's a lot of good defensive tackles. Tim Smith from Alabama, Simeon Barrow from University of Miami, the Hurricanes. There's just dudes. There's all kinds of guys. Yaya Black for Iowa. Davin Van for NC State. I mean, there's just a lot of guys. And if you were this draft, the 49ers, I'm looking at their defensive line. I mean, you got Bosa, you got some backups, you got Evan Anderson, but I mean, they've got some, this is not a great defensive line the Niners have. And it's like they have an opportunity this year to go into the draft and kind of finish what their initial game plan was when they took over, Shanahan and Lynch did as a regime in 2017. They were like, we want a big, dominant, physical, deep defensive line that is the strength of our football team. That's where we want to spend our money, our capital, or we want to have a dominant defensive line. Well, they had Armstead and Buckner, they had D Ford and Bosa, and they went to the Super Bowl, and they got back there last year, and they got really close. But now that defensive line is not dominant, and now it's just Bosa and a bunch of dudes. I mean, I hate to say it. I like Jordan Elliott, but I mean, it's just Bosa. Everybody else is, I think, can be upgraded significantly. And I look at this draft as like, yeah, you could trade for Myles Garrett, but it's probably going to cost you a slew of picks and a lot of money. He's probably still worth it because he's that dominating. But, I don't know. I mean, it's like, part of me says, hey, go get Myles Garrett. Part of me says, you know what? Just trade back from 11 a couple times and build your own dominating defensive line through the college draft. And maybe, I mean, the Rams did it last year with Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. I mean, they lost Aaron Donald, maybe the greatest defensive tackle in the history of the game, and they found a way to go into the draft, pick a couple guys, rebuild their defensive line, and it's like they don't even miss Aaron Donald at this point. How would you play your cards on this D-line? You got Bosa, and now, there's talk that Myles Garrett's out there. The Browns say they don't want to trade him. Most people expect that they will eventually give in and trade him. Do you go the veteran route, or do you trade back and try to kill it with volume of picks in the draft? And maybe you'll miss on one, but if you hit on 3 or 4, now you got a really great line and it's super young.
I mean, it's a great question. I mean, this is the dilemma the Niners have because they absolutely have to build their trenches. Their O-line, of course, we know, but the D-line, like you said, they have a bunch of guys on that line, and Nick Bosa. And Nick Bosa is, he's great. He's still at the peak of his career. And you can go and grab some draft picks. I love the strategy of getting younger, building this team because you can have them for years. They'll be cheaper, but you have to hit, Larry. If you miss on those guys, it doesn't matter if you draft a hell of you can go get Yaya Black, but if he plays like Kaka Black, it doesn't matter, Larry. You have to hit on these guys. Absolutely. And the track
or if they get hurt. I mean, a lot of rookies get hurt.
They get hurt. You're trying to rely on a rookie. You might throw him out there and he might just not be able to pan out. So to me, the best situation is if you can get Myles Garrett. I know the Cleveland Browns say they're not going to do it, but listen, they're a rebuilding team. My man Myles doesn't want to play on a rebuilding team. I know he said it. He goes, I don't want it to be from Cleveland to Canton. He wants to play for a championship team. The Niners still have a little bit of a window left. Your window might be 2 years if you get Myles Garrett. And then after that, all the cap space, and it's going to be hard because you didn't draft young. You're going to have to give up a lot. But Myles Garrett is a proven player. This guy's so consistent. Every year, he gets you at least 10 sacks. Come on, Nick Bosa and Myles Garrett. If there's an opportunity, and I know Matt Mayo, I watched his YouTube last night, and he said it. He goes, they're going to try. They're going to at least attempt. Due diligence. That's John Lynch's favorite term, due diligence. You at least have to call. If John Lynch at least calls and sees what he can do, you never know. Some GMs are really stupid, Larry, and you can sit there and get him for – you can steal him. Sometimes some GMs are desperate or they're just dumb. Now for the Browns, it's going to be a big cap hit, $36 million cap hit, and that's like rough for them. For the team that's
wait a second. I heard you say that, but here's the thing. I just read yesterday somebody had this that his first year cap hit is $6.5 million or something.
Yeah, so that's what it's his cap hit to the team that gets him is very low. It's like it's a very low number because
which makes his price tag probably even that much higher, right?
Well, for a team because they got to give up capital. So the Browns are going to lose a lot in terms of cap space, but they're rebuilding. So it's not like they're going to be able to sign a lot of players. They're going to have to get draft picks. So for them, they want capital. So go get me 4 draft picks for Myles Garrett, whatever it has to be. And then they can build through the draft. And in 2 years, the cap hit will be gone. And then they can go get free agents and et cetera, et cetera. Now, for the team that's getting them for the first 2 years, it's a relatively low cap hit, but you're giving up a lot of capital. But you go and pair a guy like Nick Bosa with Myles Garrett, you're a Super Bowl favorite. You're one of the top teams that's projected to get there. So, and after those 2 years, you might not be able to extend him because he's going to want a top tier contract. And maybe you rent him for 2 years. But to me, it makes so much more sense to go get Myles if you can. I'm not knocking the draft picks. I think it's a smart take. I think it's great because you're saving money and you can continue to build your team through years. And the Rams did a great job getting rid of Aaron Donald. I never thought I'd see their defense be as dominant. It might be better in a couple of years because they drafted some absolute dogs. They hit, but the chances of hitting on every draft pick is just as good as, having the chance to get Myles Garrett. So it's a 50-50 chance either way. But man, to me, the prospect of getting Myles Garrett, who's still in his prime, with Nick Bosa, 2 defensive player of the years. Come on, man. With Fred Warner.
All right, let's talk price. Let's talk price. Let's talk trade price. Some people today were saying, what if you could get him for Brock Purdy? Would you move Brock Purdy? Where are you on that?
You don't have a quarterback. So
you don't have a quarterback, but you also have an off-season. Well, but I mean, you do. The one thing about this offseason, there are quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want Kirk Cousins? He's there. Do you want Aaron Rodgers? He's there. Do you want Mac Jones? He's there. Do you want Zach Wilson? He's there. Do you want Justin Fields? He's there. Do you want Russell Wilson? Do you want? I mean, there's there. Let's just say this: there's more proven starting quarterbacks available this year than any year I can remember. As far as when I say proven, I'm saying, well, like Mac Jones, I say is a proven starting quarterback. I don't know how good he is, but he's proven. That's the question. If you could get, let's just say the Browns said, hey, we want Purdy. We want Purdy. Would you do that? I mean, you're talking about a great Hall of Fame defensive end. We're talking about a guy who's appreciably better than Nick Bosa. We're not talking about a guy who's like, it's not Leonard Floyd. We're not talking about this guy's pretty decent. No, this is the standard bearer at the position. Myles Garrett is 6'5", 6'6", 275 pounds, and he's ripped. And he runs in the 4.5s, and he's dominating. And he had 14.5 sacks this year, I believe. And it wasn't his best year. So if they come and they say, you know what? We want Brock Purdy. What do you just say no?
I mean, you have to look at everything and see what they want. I mean, it's not like here's the thing. I'm not saying that Brock Purdy is the greatest quarterback in the world, but for the 49ers, he's their quarterback. It would be tough to go and you trade away Brock. That sends a message to the offense. It's like, dude, we just got rid of your quarterback, especially Kittle. This man has never had consistency in the quarterback situation until Brock came now. He said it many times. He's like, how many damn quarterbacks do I have to play with? And I'm not saying that Myles Garrett's not better than Brock. Myles Garrett, light years beyond him in terms of every aspect as an athlete. You know what? Myles Garrett's probably the best defensive end. You could probably make a case for TJ Watt, but
you don't want to do it, though.
Is unbelievable. This guy's the guy. He changes your game. And Kyle Shanahan said it before. He goes, you can't have enough pass rush. Like a good pass rusher is hard to find. So I think that's the quote. A good pass rusher is hard to find. Like, they're probably salivating. Salah, Lynch, but Kyle, when they heard that news, like, oh my God, we got to get him. But they've been
looking for a bookend guy for Bosa since D Ford crapped out.
But you can't trade away your quarterback because as good as your defense will be, you throw away the quarterback, then you just throw away your offense. So yes, it's probably a fair deal. Like, I wouldn't say it's fair. You trade some picks in Brock Purdy, you give them a quarterback. But man, the Niners, they'd have a good defense, but then you'd be like the Vikings where you have Sam Darnold as your damn quarterback and you're not winning against elite quarterbacks in the NFC or any team. So if they can find a way to do it with keeping Brock, again, he's not the greatest quarterback in the world, but he's a good quarterback for the 49ers. He knows the system. He can win games with them, and the offense clicks with him. I think they got to find a way to do it without giving up Brock, but they'll probably have to give up a lot of draft picks. But again, you give up those draft picks, and you're in a win now Super Bowl window. You got the easiest schedule in the NFC West right now coming up. It's a recipe to win a Super Bowl. Don't trade Brock.
No doubt. No doubt. Okay, couple more before we call it quits. I heard somebody suggest today that maybe KJ Wright will be the Niners defensive coordinator in waiting. He definitely was in Mobile, and it seemed like he had a nice little rapport going with Olufemi Oladejo and Mike Green and some of those edge rushers. It seemed like he was really vibing off them. They were vibing off him, and some of the practices, he was getting really excited. But what do you think? Is KJ Wright, you think, is he the heir apparent to Robert Saleh as the DC?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, he looks like a good coach. He's a good assistant on there. Let's see him be a linebackers coach first. Let's see him be take another step forward. I want to see him get a little bit more experience. He's an inexperienced coach. I think he's a good one. He looked good on the Super Bowl or Senior Bowl practice highlights, if you want to, gloat about him. But I heard Mayoko the other week said he's a guy that has high energy. He can be a defensive coordinator, but I don't think so. If Salah leaves, you got to replace him with a really proven candidate, because look what they did before. They had a guy in Nick Sorensen who has had experience as special teams. They promoted him right away to defense coordinator, and he fell on his face. I'm not saying that KJ Wright can't coach or he can't be a defense coordinator, but if you're going to get rid of a guy like Salah, I think they've learned their lesson. Go get an absolute, really good defensive coach, because you don't know when it's a new guy. And there's just too many unknowns when you have, somebody that's working up the ranks. And I think eventually maybe he can be, but I'd rather have him, go up the rankings, be a linebacker coach. I mean, we're getting excited over a Senior Bowl practice highlight. Let's calm it down a little, Larry. That's all I gotta say.
Let's hit the supers. John Holmes, yes, says $9.99 super sticker. All right, thank you, John. Leaf says, love the show. Jaden Daniels said he uses virtual reality headsets for game prep and to read defenses. Use of them written in his contract. 49ers should have the best tech. How did they use technology to train and prepare players? Thanks. Well, I think they probably have a lot of the same things. I know that Stanford used those virtual reality goggles to have the quarterbacks go through their progressions. And basically it's, you wear the goggles and you just do all the quarterback mannerisms, and you just go through your reads, and it kind of forces you to kind of change your positioning as you're going through your reads and make sure that your eyes and your feet and your shoulders and your lower body mechanics are tied to your eyes. And that's a big part of it. I don't know. I've never seen the 49ers bust out the virtual reality goggles, but you're right. We're in the middle of Silicon Valley right there. Stanford, if Stanford's quarterbacks are using virtual reality goggles, it makes me think the 49ers probably have that available to them as well. But I've never actually heard them reference it. But yeah, I got to think that whatever the cutting edge devices are to best prepare your players, the 49ers are using any and all of them. But it's a good question, and one that I'll ask next time I'm down there. As I said, I know Stanford used those virtual reality goggles to help their quarterbacks. I remember talking to Tanner McKee about it and how he felt like it helped him go through his progressions. It helps a lot of the injured players get back on the field and stay fresh mentally, because, it's like you got to make these decisions really quick, and it's based on what formation you're seeing and what pre-snap looks you're seeing. And so those are mental reps that you have to go through if you're going to be really good at the position. So I think Stanford players use it a lot. Now, I've never heard the Niners reference it. Have you ever heard them reference it in any way?
I haven't heard the Niners reference it. I know Jaden Daniels, they did a whole segment, and I've seen the videos and stuff, but I actually know in the rehab world, like I had a couple physical therapist friends and rehab doctors and stuff, and I have a friend that went to Stanford, and they've used it now. Like my friend has a clinic he works at, and he uses it with some of their like younger, people, orthopedic injuries, sports injuries, and they do it. They use it. It's pretty cool. Like it's actually super cool how they can use it. You can, like you said, you can visualize things, and for rehab and players that maybe not playing, it's a good way to keep them integrated and kind of go through the motions and stuff, so to speak, but also for preparing game film and going through their reads. So it's pretty cool. I wish the Niners use it. I mean, JD5 got the dog this year, and he swears by it. So if Jaden Daniels says it's a legit, Niners need to get in on this. I would be interested to see if they use it.
That's a question for Shanahan for sure. Next time, or
Yeah.
Lynch, next time I'm down there, I got to ask that question because, I know Stanford used the goggles, and I know their quarterbacks, swore by them. I mean, it was this absolutely helps me because I do mental reps even when I'm not playing, and it gets me comfortable with tying my feet to my eyes, to my arm, what I'm looking at, where I'm going with the football, and it also helps me kind of understand, how long do I want to stay with this look? When do I want to come off it? If I come off it early, what happens? If I come off it late, what happens? If I get to my third progression too late, where is he? What does that do? It's all trial and error with every single play. Where, how many guys you have in the progression, and as far as where are they, and if you get to them late, where are they, as opposed to if you get to them early, depending on the route they're running, if they're, what I mean? So there is a lot that goes into it, but I've heard the Stanford players swear by it. So I bet you the Niners use it. We just don't talk about it.
Yeah,
I bet you they use it. I'll be my guess is they do use it, and it would be an off-season thing. But I've never heard anybody reference it, and I've never seen it, so I definitely need to ask. John Holmes says need to trade back. Second and third round is loaded. Mason will never be there. Yeah, Mason Graham, he's saying. I don't think so either. I think he's too clean of a prospect to be there at 11, and I do like the idea of trading back. Titus Muller says possibly because of Rice, getting a special wide receiver is one of my greatest joys as a football fan. Wilson would be exciting, and I loved your plan of trading back to get him. Could we do that and still draft needed linemen? When he's saying Wilson, is he talking about Garrett Wilson maybe? Or was I talking about a different Wilson?
The Wilson on your draft board.
What position?
Trying to go back to it. Do you have it?
I don't know, because I was looking at different positions.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'll say this: if he's talking about Garrett Wilson, the Jets receiver, I brought this up yesterday on the stream.
Oh, maybe that's what he was.
That Garrett Wilson, wants to play for Robert Saleh, supposedly. I mean, he supposedly likes Robert Saleh.
He'd say Garrett Wilson, yeah.
And Garrett Wilson is to me, if Garrett Wilson were in this draft, I think he would be a top 10 pick, and he would be the second wide receiver taken after Teteroa McMillan before Luther Burden. So I think he's a really good prospect. He runs in the high 4.3s. The Niners need a vertical threat, but they don't need just a vertical threat who can just run down the field and go patterns. They need somebody who's a vertical threat who also can run the full tree, who can run the full patterns. And you know what? This is a guy, Garrett Wilson, especially because it seems like every year there's so many receivers. If you could get Garrett Wilson, that's the guy I'd go after. Oh, more so than T. Higgins. I love T. Higgins, but T. Higgins is not as fast. T. Higgins has had more injuries. T. Higgins is great, but he's going to cost you more. This guy is going to be cheaper. He's obviously going to cost you more as far as draft capital because T. Higgins doesn't cost anything. Sure. But yeah, if you could get Garrett Wilson, I kind of, the more I look at the Niners off season, the more I think, man, the biggest story that we're not talking about is if the 49ers don't do anything at wide receiver, they actually could be kind of screwed.
I agree.
Because Debo may not go. I mean, he may not be able to play. And Ayuk may not be able to play until November. And, as far as Debo goes, I don't know how good he's going to be. He seems like he's regressing. And then Pearsall didn't show me enough last year to make me fully confident. JJ is good, but as we all know, there's limitations there. Cowing needs to get, 15 pounds of muscle on him and get stronger. It's not a vintage wide receiver draft. I love Tez Johnson from Oregon, but he's 150 pounds. So it's just a very if you're going to get a wide receiver and that wide receiver is going to contribute, it's almost going to have to be in free agency or via trade.
Yeah,
and that's why Garrett Wilson's so intriguing.
Garrett Wilson would be an absolute home run, and he's got the Robert Salah ties. I mean, and Brandon Ayuk probably won't be back till midseason, and Garrett Wilson is a very similar skill set, maybe better, and he's younger, and like you said, he's cheap because he's on his rookie contract. You're going to have to give up something to get him, but at the end of the day, you go throw him out there, he's your wide receiver one. Then Juwan Jennings can really do his damage, not having to, take those, single coverage or double coverages from, the top cornerbacks, although he did it last year. Juwan Jennings proved himself last year. And if you saw what Terrell Owens said today, he basically said Jennings should have been the one getting $30 million. The guy was unbelievable this year. So you get Juwan Jennings with Garrett Wilson. Who knows what Debo's going to do? Like you said, he's a guy that he may not be back. I know they said that he'll be back next year. John Lynch said that, but he's getting older. The injuries have caught up to him. He's a little slower. Who the hell knows what you're getting out of Debo? You need to get a top flight receiver. I like Persall, but his second year, he had a lot of adversity last year. There's going to be a lot of pressure on him to take that leap. He was the first round pick, but can he be this unbelievable wide receiver one? You go get Garrett Wilson, it makes Persall's chances of becoming successful a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean Garrett Wilson's not just a go pattern guy. The Garrett Wilson runs a legit, full route tree, and he runs in the high 4.3s. And I think Garrett Wilson would quickly become the Niners' number one weapon if they got him. John Muniz says trade Brock and get Garrett and draft Jackson Dart. Not really a Jackson Dart guy, the Ole Miss quarterback, but I was impressed by 3 quarterbacks this weekend. I liked what I saw from Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. I liked what I saw from Tyler Shugg, who's a 7-year college quarterback, a big 6'5", 225-pound quarterback. And then the kid Hennigan, who played at Memphis, finished up the game with the game-winning touchdown pass, and it was kind of clutch. So those were the 3 quarterbacks. It's not a very good quarterback draft, that's for sure, which does make you wonder about, who may come after Brock in a trade this year, just because there aren't a lot of great quarterbacks in this draft. But I think he's the Niners guy, and I don't think they're going to move off him. I really don't. Leaf says, thanks, Larry, for the answer and asking Kyle and John. No problem. That's what we do. 49er_throwback. Jerry Rice and T.O. approved that Brock is the guy for this franchise. This shouldn't be a debate. CMC and Brock Purdy were among the top-selling jerseys in the league. I mean, it's not a debate between Raj and I. I mean, we're all in on Brock Purdy, but there's an awful lot of people that aren't, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not going to, Brock had a regression this year, and, if that regression continues, that's going to be bad. He really put the ball in harm's way. There was a lot more pressure on him this year. You took away his weapons, and he had to kind of create on the fly and make it all happen. It was just a very difficult thing, and he did some incredible work at times. I thought some of his play this year was the best I've ever seen from him. But then also, his dial. I thought Kansas City in Week 7 sped him up. I thought they put on film a real blueprint of how to beat him, which is you really speed him up. And then I thought other teams had some success doing it in the second half of the year. And then also, I mean, I mentioned it to Shanahan. He disagreed. I think he was just covering Brock. Maybe he felt like I was attacking Brock. But I mentioned to Shanahan after I watched the All-22 of the Ram game where he threw the interception on the ball to JJ, where he forced it down the field. And when I watched the All-22, all 3 of the underneath receivers were open. They all were running kind of comebacks, and the defensive Ram defenders were all past the route trying to take away the deep ball. And it's it was really clear the Rams wanted to take away the deep ball, and the underneath was wide open. And Brock Purdy didn't show the patience to just take the check down. And it's how many times Niner fans were frustrated with Alex Smith because he wouldn't drive the ball down the field and he would only take the check down. And now, literally, they have the opposite. They have a guy in Brock Purdy who doesn't want to take the check down, and he wants to drive the ball down the field. And you know what? It was a first down interception, with plenty of time on the clock. There was no reason to take that chance. There was no reason to throw that ball. And then Kyle defended it by saying, there was a rusher in his face. He had a blind look. All the more reason not to throw that ball. All the more reason to just take the sack and move on to the next play. But instead, and I mentioned it to Kyle. I said, Kyle, how do you coach Brock out of that hyper-aggressive tendency that he seems to have? And he goes, I wouldn't say he's got a hyper-aggressive tendency. And I'm like, dude, we just saw him throw the ball to JJ, who was pretty much covered, when he had 3 guys open underneath and the defense begging you to take it, and it was first down and there was plenty of time on the clock. He forced that down the field, turned it over, and subsequently basically eliminated the 49ers from playoff contention. That was it. That was the final straw for the year. So, and I understand why, Kyle's protecting his guy from media guys like me who are going to just say whatever I think. But I didn't think he needed to there. I think he could have just been like, hey, you know what? He's a terrific young quarterback, and from time to time will get a little over aggressive because he really loves to make the big play. And I don't know if we have to coach him out of it, but we have to remind him the game situation. Something like that, Raj, would have been a lot more palatable than just straight disagreeing that he's not aggressive after the play showed just ridiculous over-aggressiveness.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think Brock definitely needs to work on his decision-making. He was definitely erratic this season, I guess is a good way to put it. He made some weird decisions, but I think also, too, the offensive line didn't put him in good positions. Sometimes, like you said, he had to be a hero. He had to create. He had to do things that we hadn't seen him do before, running out of the pocket and scramble and run for his life. And, I see that part of the game is, being an issue for him. I think also not having CMC was a massive change for Brock and this whole offense. They couldn't get down in the red zone. They lacked a reliable target. They didn't have Brandon Ayuk for a majority of the season. So there were some issues there that probably didn't help him. Can't make excuses for him, but he did make some horrible decisions. And I think that's why fans kind of started waning off of him towards the end of the season. They were in still some games where if they had won them, they could make the playoffs. And like you said, the Rams was a perfect example. And I think teams, they saw the film. They knew what they needed to do against the Niners with that, lackluster offensive line, bring the pressure, put a rusher in his face, and he's going to try to make these errant decisions. I think everybody wanted him, like you said, take those underneath passes, but he wanted to create and be a hero. But I think he'll learn from it. It definitely was a learning moment. And, there's been other quarterbacks in the league that made weird decisions at times, and now they're among the best, like Josh Allen. I'm not saying that Brock Purdy's going to be the next Josh Allen, but early in his career, he did make some really poor decisions. He was throwing the ball into weird coverages and made some errant passes. He had some questionable decision-making, and he's gotten better from it. And that's what you want out of your quarterback. Brock's 25? He's still young, still learning the game. So he'll learn how to make better decisions, or at least we hope so, because if he doesn't, it's going to be bad news if they sign him and he make.
Well, build a fortress around him. Get him a couple more weapons. Get him a whole lot better defensive line on the other side of the ball, and a lot more speed on in the secondary and on the second and third level. And I think he can win you a couple rings. I really do. I think Brock Purdy can he's going to win the 49ers a couple Super Bowls if they can surround him with a better collection of talent than they have right now. Two last ones here. Jay Cash says, Larry, can I get your thoughts on Texas safety Andrew Makuba? Fast and violent playmaker, would be an amazing safety tandem with Malik Mustafa. Can he be a plug and play player at free safety? Jay Cash, I love Makuba. He made that big interception, I think, at the end of the ASU game. He's the best coverage safety, I think, in this draft. So, the Niners like their safeties to do two things: hit like trucks and cover. You got to be able to run and cover, but you got to be able to really hit. And Makuba, I think, is the best combination in this entire draft in some ways. I mean, Malachi Starks, I guess, is the best. He's the guy that's going to go 8 or 9 in the draft, something like that. Maybe 15. Maybe the Niners will even take him Malachi Starks at 11. But Andrew Makuba is exactly the free safety that they need. He can definitely play the deep middle in a cover 3. He can definitely play man-to-man down the field. He's definitely a violent hitter who will make you take account of where he is on the field at all times. And he's definitely has ball skills. So, ball skills, hitter, cover guy, good athlete, good runner, healthy, came from a great program. Yeah, Makuba's big time. I love him. The only thing is, if I don't know how you could get him because, I'm going D-line probably in the first couple rounds. And then in round 3, I'm going with Anthony Belton. Now, if I could trade back from 11 down to 15 and get myself some extra picks in the 3rd round, Makuba would be on my short list. Get the tackle and the free safety. He would be a phenomenal free safety next to Malik Mustafa for the next 10 years. He would be absolutely fantastic. We got this one. Faithful Niner says $1.99 super sticker. All right. Thank you, Faithful. Thanks for jumping in. All right, Raj. Super Bowl 59 coming up this weekend. You got some thoughts? Who you going with? And what do you think of this one? I mean, one of the interesting things that I touched on earlier tonight on Niners Nightly was how I really think the Niners ought to copy these two teams, the Eagles and the Chiefs. As far as, like some Niner fans are expecting the Niners to draft an offensive tackle at 11. Okay. And I just don't think they're going to do that. Last year, they got a really good offensive guard in the 3rd round. And if the draft were redone today, he'd probably be the first offensive lineman drafted. And then you look at these two Super Bowl teams. I mean, Jordan Mailata is Philly's left tackle. He was a 7th round pick. Kansas City does not have a starting offensive lineman that was drafted in the 1st round. And yet Kansas City drafted Karlaftis, their defensive end, in round 1. They took Chris Jones in round 2. Philly drafted Jalen Carter in the top 10. Nolan Smith was a 1st rounder. Jordan Davis was a 1st rounder. That's 3/4 of their defensive line, all in the 1st round. And I realize a lot of people want to see the Niners upgrade the O-line, but the Niners offensive line is not great, but they did finish 10th in yards before contact last season. Well, on defense, the Niners last year finished 19th in pressure rate, and their defense also had the 5th worst EPA per rush. I've seen Tim Kawakami say he thinks that defensive tackle is most likely the pick at 11. Personally, I really think the defensive line is a little bit more of a priority than the offensive line. The offensive line, the Niners need a couple new players, and they could probably use a couple depth pieces. But defensive line, your depth, your backup offensive linemen only play if somebody gets hurt. Your backup defensive linemen all play every game in a rotation. So it's kind of, and I don't like the Niner defensive line that much. I like Evan Anderson. I like Bosa. I like the potential of a couple guys, but I don't love it. I don't love any of those tackles that much. I'm not, don't love Jordan Elliott, don't love Malik Collins, don't love Kalia Davis, don't love Khalil Davis. You don't, love Drake Jackson as a dude, but, not yet as a football player. I mean, there's just, you know what I'm saying? I like Sam O. He's not bad. There's a couple guys that aren't bad. I like Teron Jackson, who they picked up at the end of the year. He's yet to even play in a game yet. But I like him a little bit. But they need help. The 49er defensive line needs to be rebuilt significantly, both inside and outside.
No, 100%. I think both of these teams in the Super Bowl, as much as I hate them both, they both have great trenches, O-line, D-line. If you look at the blueprint, you got to build a D-line because, like you said, I mean, one of the major weapons for the Eagles, they have Vic Fangio, and he really retooled that D-line. Chiefs, obviously Spags, Chris Jones, we know the whole situation. You watched Super Bowl last year, and D-line ate us up in the most crucial moments. So Yeah, for sure. Niners do need to build his D line. They got, Robert Salah back. I'm interested to see what he's going to do. And he wants to make this. I mean, in 2019, when they went to Super Bowl, that was it. That was the strength of this defense. Strong front, get to the quarterback, pressure, all gas, no brakes. But they also need to build the O-line because both of these teams, look at the Eagles, their offense is predicated on Saquon Barkley running behind these massive guys on the O-line. Like their O-line is stacked. So either way they go, I'll be happy, but build the trenches. As far as the Super Bowl, I can't stand both of these teams. I wish they could both lose, but you have to pick a winner, Larry. And as I told you yesterday, I'm going to pick the Chiefs. I'm not rooting for them. I'm not rooting for any team, but I cannot stand the Eagles fan base. They do not deserve a Super Bowl because, listen, if the Eagles win, they're going to sit there and puff their chests. We were the team that took down the Chiefs, not the Niners. We could beat them. You guys can't. Patrick Mahomes ended your season. We beat them. We stopped the three-peat. They're going to run it all over the NFC teams' face, especially the Niners. I can't see it. The only player I really respect on the Eagles is Saquon. He's a dog. It's going to be his birthday, but he's going to have a birthday loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. And unfortunately, they'll be holding up their 3rd Street Lombardi. But next year, the 49ers stop them.
Well, I'm going to give you one thing to chew on here. So this is a little matchup angle on this thing. Patrick Mahomes targeted receivers behind the line of scrimmage on a career high 26.9% of his attempts, almost 27% of his passes were behind the line of scrimmage. And it resulted in 851 passing yards, second most in the NFL, and a league high 45 first downs. So he loves to throw it short. And let guys run little screens. I love the prop in this game for Kareem Hunt receiving yards.
Mm-hmm.
Raj, it's like 6.5.
Yeah,
it's
we looked at it last week.
One little screen to Kareem Hunt, and you're going to cash that. So I thought that was interesting. Mahomes has accounted for 5 of the top 6 seasons since 2016 in passing yards on attempts behind the line of scrimmage.
Wow.
So he's really loves to throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage, and you know why? Because it's a high percentage throw. It's really conservative. You're hardly ever going to turn it over. The Eagles' defense, though, has allowed the fewest yards per attempt, 4.1, and the lowest success rate, 29.9%, on passes thrown behind the line of scrimmage this season. So you got a Kansas City team that likes to throw it behind the line of scrimmage, and then you got an Eagle team that's really good at defending that. I think the Eagles take that part of the game plan away from Kansas City. And I kind of like the Eagles to win this game. I'll say this. I love the under. I think the Eagles offense is going to struggle against Kansas City's defense and Spags. And I think Hurts is going to struggle. I think they'll slow down Barkley enough. You know what I mean? I don't think they're going to dominate on offense. I think it's going to be Kansas City's defense is going to win that battle. But then when you flip the card, I kind of like Philadelphia's defense to slow down Mahomes, who's doesn't have a great rushing attack. This isn't the best line he's ever had. He's, Kelsey looks kind of old. They've had some games where they statistically look like they're kind of limping towards the finish line. I don't know, man. I mean, it's an interesting matchup, but I think the both defenses kind of rule the day. I think that the Eagles are a better defense, significantly better defense this year with Fangio than they were 2 years ago when they've played this Chiefs team last time. I like Philadelphia. Kansas City, I think, is awesome at home. Philly's also great in their home stadium. Neither will have that advantage. It's going to be a fast surface. Barkley's very, very fast.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, last time the Eagles played him, Hurts had that costly fumble, and he said that he's been tortured by that since.
Yeah.
I think Hurts plays a cleaner game. I think Eagles run the ball, and I think the Eagles win the game. I like the Eagles. I like the Eagles on the money line.
It's going to be interesting. I think it'll be a good game. You're right. The last time they played, the turnover really crushed them. I think that's going to be the key of this game. Obviously, turnovers are the story, especially these playoffs. The teams that have had these big turnovers have been dominating the games. And I think that's what's going to be the difference. I think the Chiefs will win the turnover battle, and that's why they'll win the game. And let's not forget, the Chiefs do get a couple calls here and there from the refs. So I expect I expect a weird call here or there. That's going to be a little controversial, but I just see the Chiefs winning. And again, I can't have the Eagles fans. I know I hate the Chiefs, but I can't have these Eagles fans ripping me apart after this game.
Here's for those who want to side with Raj here and go with the Chiefs. Consider this: Jalen Hurts splits when pressured versus when clean. And have you seen these numbers? Out of 37 quarterbacks when pressured, he's 37th in success rate when pressured. He's 37th out of 37 in EPA per attempt. He's 33rd out of 37 in sack rate when pressured. He's 32nd out of 37 quarterbacks in yards per attempt. So we all know that Spags makes adjustments. We all know that Kansas City, by the way, is number 6 in the NFL in defensive pressure rate in quarters 2, 3, and 4. So Hurts is going to be under some pressure in this game, as Raj said, and he does not play well under pressure. Just saying. So maybe I'll have to reconsider. But once again, it kind of, if you know, how am I going to wager on this thing? I'm not really sure. I just told you I like the Kareem Hunt prop. I'll say this. I also kind of like the under because I like both defenses. I also kind of like the teaser where you take, the team that you like to win, throw 7.5 points in one direction, and then throw 7.5 points on the total and go under. So I kind of like the under. So, but I'm not really 100% confident of it, and I kind of like Philadelphia, but I really like the low-scoring game. I may wind up just playing. I may wind up, after looking at some of these numbers, I got to look at more numbers. But if I decide I start feeling like it's just Kansas City, maybe I'll go Kansas City on the teaser, which would be like Kansas City +5, and then under. Whatever the total is, I think it's 48. Maybe you tease it up to, 50,
up to like
54, 55, something like that, and go under. I don't know. That's where I'm leaning.
You had your bet that way. Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, and tomorrow I'll do a breakdown of some of the props too, and take a closer look.
There's a lot. Props. Oh man, these props. There's even Taylor Swift props.
Yeah. No, I can't. I can't go with the Taylor Swift props.
How many times are they going to pan to her in the crowd?
But there is, to me, like, like personally, I think, Travis Kelce. I mean, he's always played big in these games. I mean, he's just seems like, he shows up all the time. I think Barkley's going to have a good day. So anyway, I'll look at all of the props. There was also one that I had. I think it was Karlaftis was a half sack. Over under, and I went over. I like Karlaftis to get one sack.
Karlaftis should have
he's playing great, and he's in his prime. I think Karlaftis for sure gets a sack or two in this game. I love the over on the Karlaftis sacks. He's for sure going to get one. All right, that is going to do it for us. Thanks to Pig in a Pickle. Thanks to BetUS. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles for sponsoring this live stream. Raj, you got a final thought? What do you got cooking between now and Super Bowl Sunday? If people want to check out what kind of content you're putting out there, what are you going to put out? Anything special on Super Bowl Sunday? What do you typically do on Super Bowl Sunday?
I mean, whatever's popping. We talk about. I mean, I usually like tweet, during the game, live tweet like it's a Sunday game, but we'll be tweeting, posting stuff, posting some memes. Of course, the memes are always good, but I'm just excited to get the season over with so we can focus on the 49ers season. But yeah, I'll be watching the game. I might go live after the game so we could talk about it, all that good stuff. I'll be at a Super Bowl party with my friends, but afterwards we'll go live and everything. And I'm ready for some good food and take the over with Taylor Swift.
All right. Good food. What's your favorite food for Super Bowl? Are you a chips and dip guy? You want to go sliders like burgers? You want to go pizza? You want to go pulled pork? You want to go 9-layer dip? I mean, what exactly
Everything
is
and
the
anything.
fare?
I love it all.
Pizza, give me
wings.
what's your first round draft choice? I mean, what's 11th overall on the who's going in round 1 in the the Raj Super Bowl Sunday eat-a-thon?
Round 1 is wings, man. Go get me some.
Wings.
All
right,
wings.
there you go.
Some wings. That's the number 1.
Spicy buffalo wings.
Buffalo wings. You get some.
Hooters.
Some spicy ones. Go get some ranch on them. Whatever you want, blue cheese, whatever you like. But go get me some wings, man.
Yeah. Seriously.
Wingstop.
It's like the wing. It's like I read last year was like some ungodly number of pounds of wings get eaten in America on Super Bowl Sunday. It's like 800,000 pounds of wings.
I love wings, man.
Oh, I do too. I'm a connoisseur. That's going to do it for us. Thanks to Raj. Thanks to all of you guys. Until next time. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful.